Hello and welcome back to another episode of MHSNews Gaming. I'm your host, Myles Edgington, and here's my co-host for today, Dog. So, I like to draw. I consider myself a bit of an artist. So today I wanted to talk about some games I've played that I absolutely adored their art styles. We're gonna talk about 3 games today that each of them had some unique art styles or aspects about them that I just absolutely fell in love with. So today we're starting with Crystal. Basically, you take control of a character named Crispell, whose life is suddenly just flipped upside down when she runs into a magical talking frog with a top hat named Matthias, who tells her, "Oh yeah, you have time manipulation powers." And she's like, what? And he's like, now we have to go on an adventure to stop the evil Time Empress from doing something evil. Of course, there's Crispell. For once, the healer in the party is not there to just sit there. Her attack damage is actually reliable, and her speed buffs are really good. Then you got Christopher. He's just too good to not have. He acts as basically your main magic support, which makes him really good for easily dispatching any enemy that comes your way. Then there's Wilhelm. He's very replaceable. He does a lot of stuff that a lot of the party members can do better. Then you have JKR721, or as the cast lovingly refers to him as, K. He has probably what I consider one of the most special aspects. Eventually, you overheat and you explode. You can take turns to cool down, and just he has a lot of good coverage stuff. He just absolutely shreds for enemies' HP if you use him correctly. And then you have Zaz, who is the team's wild card. Her attacks are completely random. So if you just want to have some silly, just very silly fun, Zaz is a good party member for that, because you never know what's coming next. And then there's the last party member you gain. Well, her whole ability is basically, it's kind of like collecting a Pokédex. You steal their souls, and now you could use their power for your own personal gain. I will say Fakari is a very cool mechanic. If they introduced her as a party member earlier into the game, I think it would have worked a lot better. As I've talked about with the characters, the combat brings in a lot of fun mechanics. I haven't even talked about the greatest part that makes this a very unique RPG experience. You are in the middle. There are enemies on both sides, but the great thing comes with Crispell's time manipulation, which is, if you play around with it, it's just very fun. To the right of you, you can send things into the future. You can make goblins incredibly old, or you could on the left, you can send them into the past if you really feel like fighting a baby. Now that I think about it, it gives you a moral dilemma. Do you want to fight a baby, or do you want to fight an old man? Then comes down to probably my favorite part of Cris Tales, is its very unique art style. Of course, it's 2D characters in a little 3D world. In the background, and the set pieces are just incredibly detailed and lovely. The character designs, you can tell they put so much effort into them, especially because then they make every character you run into interesting. Every NPC has a story, because what you do on your journey to defeat the Time Empress directly affects what happens to what town you're in. Every area you go to is unique. In the end, I'd still give it a solid 9 out of 10 because this game was such a fun experience for me. Oh, so many things just had me laughing or being like, oh, that's sad, or it just made me feel invested in the characters. Next is a game that I think has a much more considerable following, Cult of the Lamb, this was my first roguelike ever, which has made this game, frankly, very special to me because it was such a great way to introduce it to me in such a cutesy art style for what in reality is a very dark and violent game. You play as a lamb. In this universe, because of a little prophecy, the 4 bishops who rule the land are basically executed, all of them, because they might go and help their brother that they don't like to talk about. But basically, by killing you, they send you straight to the one who waits. He's like, alright, I'll give you a deal. I'll bring you back to life, but you have to take revenge on the 4 bishops and then free me. And you're like, hell yeah, buddy. And then you have to start a cult. So this was another one where combat was just such a fun part of it. Your weapons at the beginning of a run are randomized. Your spells are randomized. But it gives you some more stuff to work with. It gives you tarot cards, which are basically just a variety of buffs. The relics that the DLC added, of course, make this a whole nother thing. It makes it even more broken. Then there's the weapons, which of course, since they're random, it really likes to make sure that you learn how to use all of these well, or basically your run is screwed. Then the fleeces, this is one of my favorite ones, because it basically gives you bonuses on stuff with a little bit of a drawback. But now to the actual cult part, which comes into like one of the struggles of the game. It's hard to keep everybody fed because they need to eat a lot and they also make a mess. The thing is, some of these things, even if you don't want to do them, if you don't do it, everybody for some reason is very unhappy. And then the art style, again, is frankly too cute. There's so many different character designs for your little cult members. You can't control how they act, but you sure can control what you have to look at. I find it incredibly expressive and cute for a game about running a cult, which is still so absurd to me. But that's the point of the game. A game which I give a solid 9.5 out of 10 for. With really my only complaint being, man, how did these guys survive before I put them in the cult? How did these guys fend for themselves? Last but not least, it's a game called A Short Hike, which is what it sounds like. You are a little bird. You must hike up the mountain. The game style is just very cute. It's 3D, but you take a closer look. That's all pixels. There's a lot of small NPCs, a bunch of animal fellows. All of them are just kind of silly. They're doing what they're doing. They're just having a fun, relaxing time out in the woods, out in the wild. The game provides you a lot of things to do. They're just trying to discourage you from just immediately just speed running to beat the game, which I did not. I did most of the little side quests. The game is, like it promises, a short hike. You just go around to have some fun. It spreads like the required items out. It makes you do fun things to get them. You don't find them by going up the path to the mountain. You have to find them by going out there, grabbing a stick, and just going exploring. All of the areas for such what's a small island are so varied. The world feels so much bigger, which is like the point. Like, it feeds on that childlike wonder of when the world was a lot bigger than it used to be. And it's just one of the games telling you, get out there, go exploring, and rediscover that joy. Which is why A Short Hike gets a very short review of a 10 out of 10. This is, frankly, in my eyes, a perfect game. I don't see any flaws in it because it delivers what it promises. A short hike, but one that provides a very fun and unique experience. One that just encourages you to enjoy the moment instead of just rushing through like some sort of dirty speed runner. I think that's going to be it for this episode of MHS News Gaming. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you'll potentially join us next time if anybody continues this next year. Goodbye.